Hello and welcome to today's conversation. I'm Eduardo Delgado from the Chicago Philharmonic, and today it gives me great honor to be joined by the artistic director and principal conductor of the Chicago Philharmonic, Scott Speck, and the
Hey.
extraordinarily talented Polish composer Elżbieta Sikora, who will be featured on our upcoming program in April. Before we get started, I wanted to show some gratitude to the Polish Cultural Institute in New York for being a huge supporter of this upcoming program. Scott, to set the stage, can you give us a quick overview of the April 1st program and what audiences can look forward to that evening?
Yeah, absolutely. And great to be with you. I'm very excited about this concert. We've been thinking about it actually for the better part of 1 year. It is a concert that really, I think, spans different genres and different styles of music in two extremely contrasting pieces, which I think will be very interesting for the audience. We are featuring our artist in residence, Njioma Grevious, wonderful violinist, who I'm sure a lot of people watching today have heard. She'll be performing this piece, the Saint-Saëns Violin Concerto number 3. But today I want to focus on the piece that's going to open the program, and it's this one here. It's a piece called Liquid Air by the composer Elżbieta Sikora. And I'm so excited that we have the composer with us today.
It's really
Hello.
it's really a treat. And before we transition and let you guys handle this conversation, I can't wait for this. What drew you to this piece, and why did you want to share it with Chicago audiences?
What drew me to this piece was when I had a chance to look at this score and also listen to a previous performance, I was amazed at how extremely skillfully it's been put together, and that the instruments are used in such a way as to create sounds that I had never heard before from an orchestra. Now that's really high praise because composers for centuries already have been trying to create unique sounds with combinations of instruments. But I just found this to be a fascinating piece, and I thought it was a piece that needs to be shared with the world, starting in Chicago. Elżbieta, it is so wonderful to have you here with us. I will tell you
Thank
something.
you.
I'm a conductor who absolutely reveres composers. I put the composer at the top of the pantheon. And then come the musicians who are trying to recreate your work. And then somewhere in there is the conductor who's the coach who helps the orchestra to do this. But what we're really trying to do is recreate your vision. And so it just means so much to me to be able to talk to the actual composer of the piece. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you very much for inviting me to this.
For people who may not be familiar with your work, is there anything you'd like to say to describe this piece, Liquid Air, the piece that we're going to be performing?
It's not so easy to describe the piece, of course, even for a composer. But I can say that the idea of mine was that I would like to do something which shows that the sound can become something else. So the one sound goes to another sound. One color of orchestra goes to another kind of colors.
Hmm.
And also the whole piece is like going from the first part, which is very quiet on the beginning and slow, to the third part, which remembers this first part, through the
Mhm.
second, which is much more energetic and much more different. So this was the global idea, and after that, I was looking for how to do it, of course.
Yeah. One of the things that stands out to me is that, you mentioned different sections, and in fact, in this score, you have written it as different movements. So there's kind of a almost a classical feel there. We have a slow movement, then a very fast movement, and then the third movement, which combines a little bit of both slow and fast. Um, what led you to shape it this way instead of writing it as just one continuous piece of music?
Yes, it could be even called symphonies. I sometimes I have telling that I have thought about that, but I like to give names to my pieces, and a lot of pieces has names
Mhm.
because first of all it evokes something for the audience, of course, and it's a question mark somehow. So somebody who is listening to it can looking for the answer and how and why it is called like that. And the second reason was that I like to now to make pieces which are in movement, in some, not in the whole shape, but in different movement. Like this one, it has three movements, as you said, one like an opposite of another. So curiously, the second piece is not the slow one, but it's the rapid one.
Right.
In opposition to the normal shape of the symphony or something like that. And the theme of the piece, I call it liquid air. It's why? Because liquid air is also something, the air can be transformed into the liquid. So takes another shape and has another behavior. So like the sounds also in this piece, they are shaping it themselves, or I'm shaping them, or I am asking the conductor as you to shape them. You know, the conductor is very important in this piece also.
Well, I always think of a conductor as the composer's advocate. And in fact, there's a great conducting book by Eric Leinsdorf called The Composer's Advocate, because that's what I'm trying to do, especially when the composer is not there in the room with us, as you will not be this time. But we have the advantage that I get to talk to you so that then I can then help the musicians to shape that. You were talking about the different sections, which is, like different movements. It's almost a classical idea. And there are a couple of other things that remind me of a classical piece. For example, I actually laughed when I saw this the first time. There is I think like a 12 measure section at the beginning of the fast second movement that has a repeat sign, just like in a scherzo, of a Beethoven scherzo. He'll have a little short first phrase, and he'll put a repeat sign. And you almost never see something like that in a modern piece that is supposed to sound like, the environment. So I thought that was fascinating. And then toward the end of the third movement, the whole orchestra stops playing, and there's a flute cadenza, just as if it were a flute concerto. And I just think it's delightful that you're using these, reminders of classical form within this very, very modern piece.
Yes, when I was very, very young, I thought that we have to just forget about the tradition and do only experimental music, experimental sounds. I was studying with Pierre Schaeffer in Paris, so really do some revolution in music at that time. But after years, like many other composers, I thought that maybe it's not so bad, not so, how to say it, not so, maybe we have to go and to look a little bit behind us and make a switch between the classical tendencies and also the modern. It's not that I'm going to write now classical music. It is not at all. But I think that I find my way to find my own language now, which is not so experimental, but it still has these elements of experimental music.
Yeah, and I think you're right that I think we are right to acknowledge the hundreds of years of tradition that precede us. And of course, we're all influenced by that, right? We can't remain uninfluenced by it. But I see that you're always pushing the boundaries. And one of the ways in which you do that is that you've notated many, many special effects for the musicians. Were all of these effects, were they all things that you had used before or which you already knew of? Or did you have to invent some new ones just for this piece?
I have all my own reservoir, you can say that, of the mind sounds, which I like, especially percussion sounds. So I'm using them very often, and also I find my way of notating them. So I have used many experimental sounds, even putting some ping pong balls on the grosskassa and others, paper, scratching paper, and so on. So it's all when I was very young, we experiment a lot, and I did a lot of recording of sounds for the electronic music which I did. So it comes from there.
Here's a question. When you write something like this, can you hear it all in your head, or are you still surprised when you get to the first rehearsal and you hear what it sounds like with the orchestra?
When I was younger, I was sometimes surprised. The first rehearsal was just like a small shock, but not more than I can imagine really how it will
Yeah.
sound. I know that we can also improve during the rehearsals some effects and some
Mhm.
way of playing. So now the
Yeah.
shock is less important.
The shock will be for us. I think at the beginning you have and this goes through a lot of all of your movements. You create a sort of a tonality because at the beginning we hear a B flat, which is a low B flat, which is continued for a long time, and then the trumpet comes in with a loud B natural, which is dissonant to that B flat, but it's still you're sort of hearing it in relation to the lower note. And then there are moments when it really does sound tonal or harmonic. Which I don't know if that's an accident of, the different counterpoint of instruments that are happening, or whether that's on purpose. Are you thinking tonally here when you write this music?
Um, I was not really, I was not thinking about doing some tonal fragments, but it comes like that, so I can just follow my instinct in this place. I'm not planning that really, but
Right.
it comes from the previous moment. I said to myself, maybe now I would like to be quiet a bit more, and I'm following a little bit Lutosławski's advice.
Uh,
He did. He told me when we met that in the big form of music, you have to make fragments which are exciting for the public, and also fragments which are more quiet. The public
mhm.
can be less stressed.
Yeah.
So,
I have a great love for the composer Lutosławski, and in fact had the honor of premiering one of his pieces, or giving the American premiere of his piece called Grave for cello and
uh,
strings. And that was back in it was more than 30 years ago or so. But I'm a huge devotee of his style, and I can see the influence in your writing. Is there anything that you would want Chicago audiences especially to hear? Because I don't think this piece has been performed in this part of the world at all, this hemisphere, really.
so this is American premiere, absolutely.
Right. But isn't it also the first premiere outside of Europe? It's been played in Poland and in France.
Of this piece
Anywhere?
is outside of Europe is the premiere, yes.
That's so exciting. So not just
This is
American, but is there
recently,
is
all this.
Yeah, is there anything that you'd like Chicago audiences to be listening for, or any message that you have to the Chicago audience?
Just to listen to it quietly, and I think it's all I would like to ask the audience, just to be
Mhm.
open-minded, and not to be too much astonished, but let the people go into the music, and I hope it will happen.
We certainly will do that. And we have two performances. So we're performing for our general audience, but also a performance for students earlier in the day. And I always find that students always approach this music with an open mind and open ears. And I can't wait to see what their reaction is to
Yes,
this music.
I like the idea you have to mix in the program some classical music with the modern music. It's a very good
Yes.
idea, and I had the experience that the public just love it also because it's something new for them. They discover something, and now the concerts are built very often like that.
Right. And
And
very
once,
often, playing the classical music makes you think of the modern music in a different way, but the opposite is also true, because sometimes the modern piece acts as a sort of palate cleanser, as we would say, so that then when you get to the meat and potatoes movement of the chansons, for example, you're hearing it with new ears. And
yes,
I'm very excited to give that experience to our audience.
and I'm also very happy that it's in Chicago because I know the city. I was working there, so it will
Yeah.
make me come back to this town.
Absolutely. We would
Thank
love
you
that.
very much.
And
Thank
of course, Chicago has the second biggest Polish population in the world. And
Sure.
we're thrilled. I'm sure a lot of people from the Polish community will come. Well, before we end, there's a fantastic Chicago connection to this piece because in 2018, to celebrate the 100th anniversary of Polish independence, the Chicago Philharmonic sent about 12 people to Krakow, and we had the great honor of working with the Academy Orchestra there, the conservatory. But before we arrived, the orchestra was beautifully prepared in many rehearsals by a young conductor who was just getting his degree, I think master's degree there, named Vincent Kozlowski. And we became friends. And, recently I was looking for a recording of this piece, and I found the video of the world premiere of it in Warsaw 5 years ago. And wouldn't you know, the conductor was Vincent Kozlowski, the same guy, the one Polish conductor that I know, who's my friend, is the one who's conducting this piece. I just think that's a fantastic connection.
Oh, yes, he did the premiere and he was very, very good, and we understood each other very well.
Yeah, it's beautiful. In fact, the better that I know the piece, the more impressed I am with him because that performance was really, really good. And we will hope to um, come full circle now, bringing this piece to Chicago, having learned from the orchestras in Poland and having learned from you. And all of this knowledge is going to go into our performance later this week.
Thank you very much, and crossing my fingers.
Thank you, Elżbieta. A real honor to speak with you. Thanks.